Today, I'm going to guide you through different stages of an application, a hypothetical one, to see how we might be able to design how we manage models in a way that it allows us to keep adding more of them without going insane. And yeah, without further ado, let's start. This is our application. We are on the checkout page, and on the top right we can see there is a timer. So basically user can stay on this page for a limited amount of time, and when we first enter the page, the timer starts counting down from 3 seconds toward 0, and when the timer expires it stays at 0. The rest of the page shows order item and also a button to pay. For now, everything is all good. And then the PM or the PO says that they want to show the pop-up to tell the user that the session is already expired and the user cannot proceed further. So I'm going to open this hook called use session expired modal, and together with its import statement, so we can go inside and see how it is implemented. In the hook, we initialize the state by checking the milliseconds left. If it is equal to 0, then we set is open to true. And we also observe the value from the timer object at the property milliseconds left. If the property becomes 0, then we also open the pop-up. So now that we have enabled the hook and the import statement, we also need to enable the model itself. Okay, it is commented. Okay, and also the import statement. Okay, and now when the timer expires, we can see the model. The model is implemented create portal, so we render it to the document body at the end, and we set some CSS properties to make it fill the viewport and center the message, and the box is colored to pink. And that is our model. So now we have already implemented what the PM has told us to do. And now that we have implemented the features, we are confident that everything is working correctly. We trigger a pipeline, and the pipeline deploys to one of our QA environment. And the QA come and test the features, and they reported a bug. What they have found is that if they refresh the screen and they view the ingredients, and when the timer expires, you can see that there are two pop-ups overlaid on top of one another. And as they consulted with the design team, they don't want this to happen. Sadly, before we can fix the issue, another requirement comes our way. In this case, we have to show another model indicating the result of a payment. And to do that, I will just uncomment this related code. And we can go see inside the hook. Inside the hook, we accept the session timer as a dependency, and we read the millisecond left and compare it to 0 and store the result in the isSession expired variable. We use the React useRef here because we want to just store the first value when the component is mounted, and not the reactive values that changes over time. Then we get the payment result, which is read from the URL search parameters called payment_result. And since we are using TypeScript, we define the possible values for the payment result, and we simply pass it here. And that is for the hook. And inside the payment result model, based on the props that it received, we show different call to actions. For example, if the session is already expired, we show a call to action that says go back to order summary. And if the session is not expired, meaning we still have some time left, we just show I got it. And once clicked, the pop-up is closed. All right. Let's see the feature in action. I have already added the payment underscore result URL search parameters with the value success. And so if we refresh the page, we should see a pop-up, a modal that says your payment is success, and a call to action that says I got it, because we still have like 5 seconds left in the session timer. So I will just do the reload. Okay, we can see payment is success, and I say I got it. And now when the session expired, we see session expired pop up. So now instead, if we want to run another code branch that says go back to order summary, we will have to set the session to be expired when the page is loaded. And to do that, I will set the timer duration to be 0. And now if I refresh the page, I can see the modal that says payment is success, and the call to action that says go back to order summary. That is the code path that we wanted. But some of you might have noticed the issue here. So when the session is expired, when the page is loaded, we see this pop-up. But when the session is expired after the page is loaded, we see another pop-up. And most of the time, we don't want that. We want to control which pop-ups stay at the top. So in this case, probably the best thing to do is to show the payment result modal instead of the timer expire, because the user just came back from handling the payment, and they should see the result before seeing the session expired modal, right? To keep the user like in the flow of the business. So how and why does things happen this way? And to understand that, we have to look at how we implement the modals. So now the model we are using create portal. At create portal, we'll mount the DOM nodes generated by the JSX here at the element, at the end of the element. So it basically is the same as append child. So the order matters because every models that we implemented, we did not specify the Z index. So it will only follow the order in which they appears in the DOM. So now we see the DOM itself. You can see that we have actually 2 models. The one below is session expired, right? And the one on the top is payment is success. So now because payment is success is opened after session expired, it stays on the top. And we probably don't want this, as I mentioned. So how are we going to fix this? We have already established that the payment result model has higher priority than the session expired model. So we can probably do something like this. We first check that the expired model is open or not, and then we end it with a payment result model that is not open, right? So then we have to change this to this instead. And this should fix our issue. But there is something hidden behind that we might have already forgot. The original issues when we implemented the session expired model that overlay on top of the view ingredient model, we haven't fixed that. To fix that, we probably have to lift the state inside purchase item that is defined here up somewhere around here. And then we can calculate whether or not the model should appear or should not appear based on the state of the other models. But let's assume for a second that the component is so deep down in the React component trees, and we would have to drill down the props to do the component and probably passing a callback up to here so that we can calculate the appropriate state for the model. That would be a hassle, right? That is where React context comes in. It helps with the prop steering issues, but the main issues still there. The main issues are two things. First, the overlay of multiple models, which we don't want. And the second issue is how can we control the priority of the models? Which one has to be on top? Which one has to be hidden? And that is what we are going to solve now. Welcome back. I will explain what I have done, and you may have different solutions, and that is all good. And you can probably share in the comments below. Okay, what I have done is I defined another file called NiceModal. And in this file, I'll define a type for the model. So it has an ID of type string and a node, which can be any React node. The ID is defined there for the purpose of deduplication. There can only be one model of the same ID. And the next thing is that I have defined the context value. These are the fields or the properties that I will pass down through the React component trees. Only open and close. To open a model, I accept a model which is defined here, and to close, I accept the ID which has to match with the ID defined here. So to open and close, you have to use the exact same ID. To pass these two values through the context, I have defined the context here called model context, and I have created an empty object but forcefully cast it to this value. Next, I have defined useModal state. This is the return type of the useModal state hook, and it has the two same properties from the context value and an additional one that says active model. This will be the model that will appear at a given time. And since we don't allow multiple models to appear at the same time, so it can only be a model or null. Here we have useModal state hook. In the hook, we define a state which keeps all the requested model to be open to the user in this array. And we have the functions to open a model. This function will be called by other hooks that wants to show their models to the user. And what we do here is we filter out the same model in the array with the same ID. So we don't allow duplicate models with the same ID in this array. And then we concat the requested one, this one, into the array and set it so that it's saved to the state. For close, we accept an ID which is a string, and we filter out the model with the same ID. So in effect, that closes the model. And the next one is active model. Here we define which of the models to show to the user, and we don't define it in the hook itself. We accept it as a form of strategy through this function called getActiveModel. So the consumers of this hook can define their own implementation or their own predicate to determine which model is going to be presented to the user if there are multiple models that have been requested to show. And the last one is the state. This is what returned to the consumer of this hook, and we memorize it so that it doesn't trigger unnecessary rendering. And the last one is the use modal hook. This one consumes the context that we defined earlier and return the only two properties of the context, and which is open and close, so that the components nested deep inside the React component tree can open or close the model without having to passing the props, or basically we avoid props during. Okay, and now we have to wrap our component tree inside this context. So that is done here in the app component. We have wrapped the provider of the model context over all of our other components. Here we pass in the model state, which comes from use model state hook as the value. Here, as you can see, we have modified a lot of parameters and also the return values of the other hooks. So the first thing, let's take a look at the use model state. Here we have the getActive model defined. We are using a function called use priority descending. So this one has the highest priority, payment result, and this one has the lowest priority. So in case that all three hooks request to open their own model, this one will only appear. And if this one is closed, this one will appear, and it comes to this one if this one is closed. That's the concept. Now as these two models, it no longer returns anything, but it accepts the model state instead. So we can take a look inside. Inside here, you can see that instead of having a state is open and return, we now opening the model when the milliseconds left reach 0. So we call to the model state open and pass in the identifier, which we define in a constant over here, and then we supply it with the node property, which is our React node. And that's how we open a model. Okay, so on view ingredients, which is bound to the button that says view ingredients, when the user click it, we open the model, and when the user close the model, we just close the model, passing in the identifier. This is how we use it. And the last one is payment result. The same goes for payment result. So we have an use effect that says if the payment result is not null, meaning it's success or error, we are going to open the model with the identifier and the React node of the model. The same goes for on close. We simply close it with the identifier passed in. So here we have two ways to use the model feature. One is to call it directly on the model state, right? That is for the hooks that are defined at the same level as the use model set hook, because here it is outside of the context, so it cannot read into the context, but it can access the model state over here. And for components that are rendered inside the context, for example, purchase item, we can use the use model hook, which will get the open and close method, and then we can use it to open and close model accordingly. So that concludes my solution. And so if you have your own and you want to share, feel free to do that in the comment section below. That's it for today. Just kidding. So let's see the final result. Okay. In case that the timer reached the end, it shows session expired as expected. So now if we say that we define the payment result to be error, now we show payment is error, and I got it. And let's see when the timer expired, nothing happened. But once I click I got it, I see the session expired modal. That is because we defined the priority as follows. So payment result comes first, session expired come later. And the last case is when we are viewing the ingredient and the timer expired, right? So let me try to remove the payment result and click view ingredients. So now we expect that the ingredient will be closed and session expired will come up. No overlapping models anymore. Yay. And that concludes today's video. So goodbye.